Alrighty, looks like we're good to go. Um, cool. So, welcome to the live stream. Let me pull myself in a little bit here. I should really get the remote thing going on. I don't know if I want to record this more of podcast style or if I just want to, chat through the live stream as usual. Cool. Anyway, welcome to the live stream. If you're joining me live, the chat is open. Feel free to say hello. Analog boy living in a digital world. I've got my notes on a notepad today, so you might see me picking this up and talking to it as we go through the session today. Let me just tone the music down for myself and possibly for you as well, so that you can hear a little bit more of me. And let's get into it. Cool. So today I want to talk about a couple of things, and these are things that I see a lot of non-design teams get caught up in and do wrong all the time. So these are the most common mistakes that I see non-design teams get caught up in, right? If you're new here, my name is Farama Henry, and I'm a product designer based in South Africa, Johannesburg, and I have worked with a lot of teams within agile environments and, just straight up waterfall environments, and, teams that don't even have concept of what those two words mean, right? And if you don't know what those two words mean, please bear with me. I am going to go into what technical teams are versus, kind of like design teams are, and what cross-functional teams are, and kind of break it down a little bit more. I hope that the audio sounds great, and if there is anything, please let me know in the chat section right here live on YouTube. Right, cool. So let me get right into it without wasting any more time, right? So there are a lot of technical teams out there, or technical founders rather, or just teams of founders who are not technical or design-led, but rather subject matter experts of a specific industry or field that they work in. So let's say finance, which usually are fintech founders, or what can I say, somebody who has worked in the dating environment and decides to make a dating app. I don't know what that means. Or maybe the telecoms environment, where you find telecommunication companies create products and ideas based on that, or retail, whatever it is, right? So you can pick all the different markets that companies pick startup products in, and they might not know how to write code, which is what we call technical people, or come from a design background, right? Which is what I'm gonna be calling design-led teams within this live stream. So getting into just the differences of what is technical versus design teams. So I think I have kind of like precursored in the introduction there that technical teams are mainly the teams that actually know how to do the technical thing to bring that product to life. And in the world of digital product design, it's usually people who write code, developers, engineers, software engineers, basically, right? Or developers, whatever you want to call them. And obviously, design teams are people who come from a design background. I think most of you who might be watching this channel would be coming from that background or want to get into that space, right? So those are the UX designers, UX UI designers, maybe some people who do web design as well, a lot of, maybe some of the front end stuff. And there is a little bit of a difference, between, really a lot of the backend code and understanding the technical architecture of how things work and how to scale things from a technical level, right? But there are people who do kind of like web design and, kind of like do front end without a lot of that back end knowledge. So I am going to put those people within the design camp as well, right? So people really come from that space, will be, design teams, your UX researchers, etc., right? So that's the difference. Technical people who know how to write code, deal with the, complex of the backend systems to actually make these intricate parts of the software work, right? And design teams is basically the people who understand how to create the user experience that the user actually interacts with at the end of the day. So interaction design, etc. And there is a lot of, sub-components of those two teams, right? So there's, many flavors of software engineers and many flavors of designers, or design teams and technical teams, right? And when you put those together, you usually get an end-to-end cross-functional team, or some people might call it a multidisciplinary team. I usually call it cross-functional team, and cross-functional teams is not only just the design and the technical people, but you would also find business analytics in there. You would find people who focus on very specific parts of defining the product, running the product, and making sure that everything works. So, things like support, etc., right? And that's when you put them together, right? But today I just want to focus on teams that are non-design led, right? So these are mainly two camps, one being the technical one that I spoke about, and the other one being the subject matter expert camp, right? So these are subject matter experts that don't have any product design knowledge, or the first one will be the technical teams, people who know how to build software but don't have the knowledge. They will have product design knowledge in a technical aspect, right? But not in a design thinking type of way. So I want to try and bring some of the things that those two camps of teams miss out, and some of the common mistakes that I see. But before I get into that, if you are enjoying watching this so far, please do comment with your ideas, your thoughts, whether here on the live streaming channel. Obviously, you will be watching this after the fact, because I can see that I don't have a lot of people on the stream right now. So if you're watching this after the fact, feel free to comment with your thoughts in the comment section, wherever that is. In the description, you will find some links to our website, our LinkedIn page, if you want to connect with me and kind of engage with the conversation. I'm always looking for people to have conversations with on the podcast. Not a UX designer. I'm currently working on a fintech series, and that is something that I am looking forward to releasing over the next couple of weeks to come. So if you're interested to that, subscribe to the podcast, and there will be very many interesting conversations that are coming in the next couple of weeks within that fintech series that I'm working on. So let's get back to the conversation and let me jump into the first of the different techniques or the methodologies that I think non design teams need to employ, right? That I see that they usually miss out, and I wrote them in a different order here, and I'm going to kind of like remix them as I go. So I think let me go with this one first, which is focusing on problem definition, right? And focusing on user problems. Now, a lot of technical teams or subject matter expert teams kind of miss out on the opportunity, really, to be able to not only understand how the technical part of putting this solution together is, but they really miss out on the opportunity of solving the core user needs, right? And I think everything in the world for it to be a good product has got some sort of a need, at the core of it. So whether it be an entertainment app, there's a need for you probably be bored or something like that, right? And you need an entertainment. There is a need for everything, for payment app, for fitness app, for whatever app that is out there, right? There is a need for it, but a lot of technical teams and subject matter expert teams really focus on the thing that they know best. And, in technical teams, is usually the latest technology. So, how do we use AI to how do we just use this piece of latest exciting software that is trending in the world to come up with something, right? And it's usually a hit and miss, right? And I am not saying that a lot of technical teams do not have team members that don't have any design background whatsoever, right? Some of them that I have worked with personally have people who've got design backgrounds, but it's very few of them, right? I wouldn't say it's a lot of them, but I think in the larger scale of the world, right, other than the teams that I've worked with only, you might find that there might be a little bit more than what I have seen in the different markets that I've worked in, right? So back to the point is that there's a huge opportunity that is being missed, with both those camps when it really comes to what is the problem you're solving for who, right? Who is this person that you're solving the problem for, and what is it that you're solving, and how do you go back to the core fundamentals of what that thing is, and is it actually solved by technology? Now, I see a lot of solutions kind of like looking for problems in the market of subject matter expert teams and technical teams, right? Because AI is trending, it doesn't mean that it kind of helps everyone, humanity, and kind of solves every problems. A lot of people use very basic have very basic computer knowledge or mobile device usage knowledge, right? And depending on where you are in the world or what problem you're trying to solve, you might actually limit the demographic that you are solving for because of using this niche piece of software or trending code or whatever it is, right? And same with subject matter experts, right? They kind of know how the mechanics of a certain market works, right? And they try and kind of come up with ideas and solutions, and this is usually from a business end, on how to, create products that they can sell into a market, and then they go and try and market that product, right? And both these two camps usually miss this first point that I'm talking about here, which is really focusing on the user needs and, the user problems. What is it that you're trying to solve, right? Within this market that you have identified, right? And what are the core problems that, this user has that you're actually solving? So that's point number one. Point number two will be getting a little bit more, maybe let me stick to kind of like the soft skill type of things. Let me see what other things that I have here that okay, cool. I think I know the sequence I want to go through now. Okay, cool. So I think the next one will be around product idea validation, right? So this is one thing that these two camps usually don't do as well, right? And when I say as well, I mean like as well, like they don't do it well, right? So when it comes to product and idea validation, right? When it comes to technical teams, I see that a lot of technical teams have got a lot of upfront investment in writing code, right? So a lot of code is written before we actually. So if they're gonna be running a POC, that POC usually is a lot of investment in code, right? Now, if you're going to be doing a POC for about 3 and 4 months, and that is a lot of development resources, that is going to cost you a lot, depending on which level of company you are on, whether you're a startup or much more for a bigger corporate. Your mileage may vary, right? But let me get into some of the product validation methods that I think that technical teams and subject matter expert teams should be focusing on, that they can employ from the design world, right? And the first one is try and do as minimum as possible, right? Now, there's usually a lot of fear and discomfort on putting an MVP into the market, right? It's kind of like defined as an MVP, but when it actually comes to it, a lot of teams don't want to put software as quick as possible into customers' hands, right? I mean, the MVP is the minimum viable product. Now, I'm not saying that put a non-functional thing out there. I'm saying that put a minimum viable product, something that people can actually use and potentially pay you, right? So you want to invest the lowest as you can on design and code when it comes to validating ideas, right? And the first one that I'm going to talk about is the landing page concept, right? Start with the end in mind and roll, kind of like see what the appetite is, right? Without actually writing code, see if people are willing to, land on your page, sign up, right, to your wait list or whatever it is, right? I had a whole live stream on that, and I've got a whole blog post that is coming still on the Do Better UX website. So if you want to check that out, you can check out the previous live stream, right? But I think landing pages are a very underrated way of validating products, right? And I went into depth in the previous live stream, but there is very little investment in design and code. You do have to define what your problem is, what the benefits are of using your product, so that when people actually look at it, they are able to sign up and be able to show you interest, right? That way you can confidently invest more into the code. Um, Knowing what is it that you need to kind of tweak and what are the features that people are interested in, right? And once that happens, right, don't just jump into actually building fully fledged features, right? You want to kind of do a lot of front end prototyping and start employing traditional UX methods such as usability testing, um, doing user interviews, focus groups, whatever it is that you can do to speak to the customer and show them some sort of working concept of what you have in mind before you actually build most of the back end stuff, right? So if you can mimic it with very small database without hooking it up onto your main backend architecture, that would be the best way to do it. Release it to a small group of people that are your early adopters, right? If you've got a landing page, you've got people signing up, those are your early adopters, and you want to use that group of people to be able to help you build your product, right? For them, of course, right? And that's the best way to actually do it. And so leverage on things like doing landing pages, things like doing front end prototyping when it comes to testing out features, but actually putting software in customers' hands, right? And try and launch your MVP as fast as possible. If you are doing it post 4, 5, 6 months, I usually say that there is usually a huge risk that people don't go live with anything post that point, right? There's usually a lot of over engineering, a lot of overthinking, and that's what gets you into what I call the death loop of scope creep, right? The scope just keeps on changing and changing and adding and changing and changing and adding and changing, and by the 6th, 8th month, the feature that started out as an MVP is not anymore, and might actually not be business viable anymore for people to focus on that specific feature, right? So cool. Let me just look at my notes here. So I've covered front end prototyping. I've covered product idea validation, landing pages. That's all good. Let me get into this one before I forget about it, and then I'll come up to the other page and then close off with the live with close off with the finishing points there. So the next one that I want to talk about is something that I have found as a great time saver and as a great way to just make your products look good, right? Especially if you don't know anything about design. This is a great way for you to be able to make sure that you are sticking to traditional methods and defined ways of interaction design and rules that are already out there, right? That people will be common with. People would just look at your product, think that it feels comfortable to use, which is what good UX design is, right? So I want to talk about design systems, right? And design systems come in two flavors. Right? The actual design elements within your design software that might be Figma or Sketch or whatever it is that you use, right? But I'm guessing you might be using those two, most probably Figma, and the actual components, right? So the actual HTML, CSS front end components that you can hook data into. So things like your nav bars, your basic buttons, your image kind of like elements and spacing, all of that stuff, the basic stuff, colors, fonts, etc. Right? Now there is so many great resources online around um, building design systems. I would suggest starting off with, kind of like a design system that's already there, that already exists, especially one that has got, most of the components that you need for your app or for your website, whatever it is that you're building, and just, work from there and use that as a basis, right? This is especially if you are within those two camps again, technical teams, or within what did I call it again? I forgot what I called it. So technical teams and the subject matter expert type of team, right? So if you're in those two camps, this is an easy way for you to adopt design languages that are already out there that can help you just make your products look and feel good out of the box, right? What you just need to overlay from there is obviously feedback on how the functionality should work, etc., etc., and some of the other things that I spoke about as well. So, if you don't want your stuff to look bad, your software to look bad, just invest in a design system early on. That way, you don't have people manually building weird buttons and shapes and things like that, and they also understand how to use specific fonts and things like that, right? You kind of have your brand and your every images and how you treat the treatment of your brand onto the software, kind of like applied and stamped onto it from the get-go, right? So I want to close off with analytics, right? And kind of some of the other methodologies around doing UX research. I did touch on, usability testing. If you don't know what that is, look it up. There's so many resources out there, right? I don't want to get into the details of some of these topics. I just want to let you know that, if your teams are not focusing on these, and I have seen, within those two camps, I'm sure there are other teams that, don't focus, that are not design led, right? That don't know about these things. So I'm speaking to mainly technical teams and subject matter expert teams, so people who really know about the industry but not necessarily about building products or software, right? So let's get into the last part, right? And I'll close off. Thank you so much for the people who have joined on the live stream. By the way, please do consider catching us on LinkedIn mainly. That's really where I am. On the website, dobetterux.com. That way you can get latest updates basically on what we are working on. Cool. So to close off, let's talk about analytics and monitoring and tracking, right? So there is a huge field in product design and UX design, which is UX research, right? And within UX research, you get what they call qualitative and quantitative research, right? And I'm gonna focus on the qualitative one a little bit, and then we get on the quantitative, and we'll segue into the analytics part and close off, right? So on the qualitative part is that you really want to get close as you can to the user, right? And get as much feedback as possible. So this is again, using things like prototypes and employing things like usability testing methods, using user interviews, uh, doing focus groups and things like that. And again, I'm throwing these out there. Look them up if you're interested, and just research about some of the terms that I'm throwing out there, right? I'm sure you've heard some about them before, but yeah, if you feel like your teams are missing the kind of like the UX design, or the product design touch, or you just don't know why your product is not working, or kind of like getting the right look and feel, and users are not adopting well, you can employ some of these methods that I've been talking about and that I will be closing off on now, right? So qualitative research is basically trying to get to the user as much as possible. I've mentioned usability testing, um, interacting with the user one-on-one, right? So there's a lot of ways that you can do this, and as I have covered here, uh, prototyping and actually setting up time with users to see how they use this product in front of you, whether it be online or in person, right, can actually help you gather much more insight on what users are looking for, right? So you want to try and find methods and ways for you to be able to speak to your users and actually have some interaction with them, right? Now, segueing to the quantitative research, right? These are things like your surveys, right? Things like your feedback in your software, right? You want to kind of try and get pick trends within the feedback that you're getting from your users, the people who are actually interacting with your product, right? Like, and you might say, okay, how do you start interacting with people and asking them stuff when you actually don't have a customer base to start off with, right? And again, please check out my live stream on the landing page. I don't know, I'll try and put it in the description, right? But I think it's a very important concept to try and employ, right? To create something like a waiting list. That way you will be able to get a lot of people as early adopters to be able to help you build your product using some of these qualitative methods, such as usability testing, user interviews, focus groups, etc., right? There is some other special ones that you might find out there that I haven't mentioned here, right? And the quantitative part is really trying to identify trends within the feedback. I would use quantitative research in the pursuit of finding how people would want to use different features, identifying new features and feature changes, right? Things like that. So this is leaning more towards analytics and really understanding how people use your product, how they want to use it, and what they would prefer, right? So this is through surveys, like I mentioned, on screen, inbuilt software feedback on its own, right? And focusing on analytics, right? I don't know what it is, but I've worked with a lot of teams. I would say out of 10, probably about six, right? That don't focus on the fundamentals of some of these things, right? So I think these are some of the fundamental things if you want to save time on your project as you go, right? So number one is really get a solid foundation of a design system. That way you don't have to think about creating buttons, font styling, etc., etc. You kind of have defined those things from the get-go, responsiveness, etc., etc., right? Number two is really sorting out things like what is it that you're going to measure, right? How does your conversion funnel look like, right? From whatever source of marketing, how are you going to pull people in to your product, your landing page, whatever it is, and from there, what does conversion look like, and how are you going to measure that, right? So number one is defining it, obviously. Number two is defining the elements of how you are going to measure that, right? So how are you actually going to measure these things that you are defining, right? So it's super important to have these things as the fundamentals, right? And I would say the third one that I would add there as a fundamental from the design world is how are you going to interact with customers? How are you going to build up a user base of early adopters that is going to give you the feedback that you need to be able to build a better product that actually answers the user needs from from asking them and speaking them and putting software in their hands, right? So closing off again on the analytics, I think it is super important to be able to define what it is that you are going to be measuring. So some sort of a conversion funnel from marketing, exposure, how whatever way you're going to tell people that this product is out there, right? To them interacting with it, signing up, and actually using it, maybe the ease payment component or whatever it is. How are you going to capture all that, and how are you going to measure that? So there's a lot of tools that you can use out there. Obviously the main ones, things like Google Analytics. There is tools like Amplitude. There is other more user experience focused tools such as Hotjar, that kind of do screen recordings and tell you heat maps of how people are using the website, etc., etc. Now, Hotjar has got a lot of competitors out there. I could go all day on kind of those tools. Maybe that is what we'll do in our design review on Thursday. In our Thursday live stream, we'll do a design review where we'll talk about different products, etc., etc. Maybe I will look at 5 of the best Hotjar alternatives out there, and why you should check them out, other than just using Hotjar that everybody uses, right? But you want to be able to track what your users are doing and how well you are doing within that conversion funnel, right? That you build. Again, I might be speaking some terms that you don't know here, but just look them up. Right. These are some of the important fundamentals that I see non-design teams miss out on, right? And these are very big opportunities that I see non-design teams miss out on, right? So get your metrics right, get everything sorted out. Let me just wrap everything up for us before I close off the stream. Today it was a nice and short one. I think I am gonna be doing maybe the Tuesday one nice and short like this one, and maybe the Thursday one, since we'll be exploring and doing design reviews and things like that, really getting into software and how things work. we might make that one a longer one than this one. Just trying to get some rhythm going on, right? So first thing that we spoke about was basically the difference between the three camps, right? Design teams, which is basically people who come from a design background, UX designers, UI designers, interaction designers, etc., right? Web designers, right? I spoke about my definition of what technical teams are, basically people who write the code, especially most of the back end stuff, right? So people who really understand, code architecture and those type of things, right? And the third camp that I spoke about was subject matter expert teams. So teams that are built up of people who really understand a specific market, whether be it banking, creating fintech products, or other kind of like rent tech products, etc., etc. There's a lot of different types of fintechs, not just from a banking background, but I'm going to use that as it is the most common. And you might be from a retail background and really understand that market well and how to build products there, right? But I think there's a lot of there's a lot of things that those two camps can employ from the design camp, right? So that was the first thing that I spoke about in this live stream, defining that. We got into focusing on user problems first. We went into kind of like how to do product validation. I spoke about a really powerful technique that I think is very underrated, that a lot of people are not looking at out there, which is using landing pages to validate your ideas, right? It helps you start thinking with the end in mind and working backwards, which I don't see a lot of teams do. A lot of teams kind of like just want to get into it and start building the software because they've got this great idea and this great hunch, right? And I've seen that kind of falling over a lot of times and on. And once you have built that waiting list, you want to start interacting with those users through kind of like more one-on-one qualitative interactions, which is a UX design research method, right? Where you want to do things like usability tests, interviews, focus groups, those type of things, right? And then from there, you want to get into more of the proper analytics, right? Where you really understand and define first before you understand, right? Define what is it that you want to measure, right, within this user journey and interacting with your product. What does success look like, right? This is something that you need to measure very early on, and define how you're going to measure it very early on in the process, right? And then I got into design systems. Now, design systems is a very big topic out there. I don't know if I made any videos on it. I don't know if I want to make any videos on it. I think there are a lot of people talking about all of these different topics out there. My point here is to curate and kind of like direct you into the right ways of thinking, right? So design systems, great way to make your stuff look well and just feel right, right? So build components so that you don't have to redo the work. You don't have to have misaligned, mismatched design language in your software going into the future. And it's really easy to kind of like update things if you either in the future kind of like want to change your design language, the tone, colors, and those type of things, right? Fonts, etc. You can easily manage them, having some of these things as fundamentals. So these are some of the fundamentals that I would really consider if I was in a non-design team. of which today I just spoke about technical teams and subject matter expert teams. So yeah, if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing to this channel, and looking forward to having the conversation with you on Thursday as we explore. I think, yeah, let's just do it. Thursday, we are going to be exploring alternatives of Hotjar in our design review session. So, yeah, looking forward to catching you out there. Before then, feel free to check out the podcast. We do have a new one coming up, as well as a blog post coming up. So, yeah, until the next one, I'm V, and I'll catch you then.